So, welcome back to another episode of this incredible series that I am inspired to create and co create and collaborate with my oldest son, Ryder. This is a focus on the what on earth is happening, the podcast that was created and the body of work that was created by Mark Passio. This is a body of work that has literally shifted the trajectory of my own personal life. And as a result, uh, when you discover something and you realize you have the keys to get out of this prison, and you want everyone else to have the keys as well. But some of them like the prison. They think it's home and they think it's comfortable and they put up curtains. I used to do that. I used to shine the bars and put up curtains and put all my little incense and make it all like a little natural and you know make my gardens and do all kinds of things. And I didn't realize that I was actually just making pretty that prison. And while I didn't intend to raise my sons with that mentality in any way, the fundamental piece that drives me is goodness, is love, is that we are all one, we are all connected, and that harm none. That was fundamental to who I am. But the piece that was missing for me is that there are actually those out there who are intentionally harming and using mind control and using sorcery and manipulating everyone out there, and their consciousness was getting lower and lower and lower. And I didn't know how to navigate that because I just wanted to push it all away and make it disappear and make it be. I just wanted to put my curtains up. I just wanted to close my curtains and don't look, everything's going to be fine. Well, I got the key from, I'm not sure what Ryder's doing, but I'm going to see if I can mute him. Let's see. So what happened was I discovered natural law with Mark Passio. Y'all good there?
Yeah.
Do I need to come in and intervene?
No.
So the thing that happened was I found a gentleman who had been doing some work and found the book Dumbing Us Down, John Taylor Gatto. And the person, Richard Gordon, who put it together, actually, it's not Richard Gordon. I can't remember his name. Sarah, do you know Richard's name? He does autonomy. He does grand theft. Do you know what? I can't remember his name. It's Richard, somebody. And I always mix him with my friend Richard Gordon. But
Richard Grove.
Richard Grove. Thank you. So close. So Richard Grove and Ryder, you were 7. You and your brother were at my studio, and I was watching Richard Grove interview John Taylor Gatto. And it shifted my whole perspective. And he mentioned Mark Passio, what on earth is happening? At the time, it was too much for me to handle. There was too far of a gap from my consciousness. I was still immersed in, I want the curtains. I want everything to be nice for my sons and pretty. And can't we all just get along? And isn't it beautiful? I still so want that. I still so want that. But I've come a long way from that very far right-brained place. I wasn't so much that I believed that everything was determined by something outside of me. I definitely had personal responsibility. But I had a lot of, and actually the personal responsibility I felt is I was to blame for everything. And that was the mind control, the religion that I had been brought up in was something that I had ingrained in an earlier program that I had held on to. Some part of me held on to. I fought it like crazy, but still there was that early programming. And now that we know, I mean, the whole body of work, we know so much more. And the body of work from Mark Passio is worth taking the time and studying. Forget about what you think of the guy. Forget about it. The guy is straight up, tells you like it is, doesn't give you allegory, doesn't give you nonsense. He tells you exactly, here's what it is. Look for yourself. Here's the references. So finally, finally last year, I was able to go through and start the podcasts. I got through and I'm continuing on about 90. Have suggested to my son, and he and I are working together because I think that to work together and process and mentor and discuss these podcasts and the information that it's a podcast, the information that the information is just you have to be able to articulate it, understand it, and know it. Because yeah. Okay, so enough of that little rant. The big picture though that I wanted to share though is that so many of us don't realize that we are in a freaking prison and we have built it for ourselves and we're trying to make it pretty. But there is a key. The key is truth with a capital T, real truth. And when you can know that there is truth and stop pretending that it's all perception and an illusion and someone, oh, well, nobody can really know the truth, because that's how they make it complicated. That's how they complicate everything so that you can be confused and not know your own truth and not know your own self, right? So there's all this smoke and mirrors and all these misdirections, all of that. I get it. Bottom line, I want our youth. I want the next generation. I want my sons and everyone that I know to know this information, to know this data, to know this, to have this knowledge, and to use it to set themselves free. Because as Mark says, he says, I can open the door for you even, but I can't walk through it for you. So we're on episode number 6. And the first question I always like to start with Ryder is, what was your number one takeaway from the podcast?
Well, this one he's mentioned a lot, but I'm going to delve into researching some more Nikola Tesla since he's interested in that. So I will pursue some knowledge on that. I think that would be interesting. We did a little bit when we were homeschooling, a little bit of learning, but just the basic level. I want to break down to this, break through the surface a little bit and understand deeper.
Awesome. Please tell me you got more out of that podcast.
Okay. Yes. I want to see. It was mostly because him explaining and shedding light on the energy control and the control of the not really natural resources, but the resources that we have been placed kind of in need of, like gas, oil, electricity, all of the resources because at this point we would not exist without them unless we are completely kind of like self-sustaining with our, just basically off grid, that whole idea. Without any way of being able to access that, we would be completely unfunctional without the electricity or oil or gas, because that's just how the world has been placed under control. And not just in the sense that the individual is in control, but because the mass is in control, the individual has no connection and has no way to understand what others are doing or what others are going through without kind of submitting to that, unless there is a group of people who are willing to completely break free from that. Because, the
illusion yes. that there's only fossil fuel, or
right, that there's only that, and that you have to pay a certain amount, that you have to do this, especially because it's possible to pay for gasoline with cash, but it's the easiest with the card. It's another way of using card for it. Same with when you pay for electricity, it's the same way of paying digitally. There's no cash for it. There's no way to get any actual monetary value. It's just using the number on the screen to get another number on the screen, to get little beams on this, to get just a certain, the service on your computer or whatever, to get the internet. Right. In a sense, beside purely material, there's nothing is actually existing or changing when you pay for a subscription to internet, because you're not actually getting anything physical from it. Now, obviously, electricity is real. There are Wi-Fi lines that does actually exist, but if you look at it in the physical world, the physical realm, most of the time you're not actually exchanging anything physical, and you're not exchanging it for something physical. If you were able to live without it, then it would be, I think, the argument that there's basically nothing. You're paying nothing for nothing, Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but that's like the big thing, and that's the main way of controlling.
Yeah,
that
it
I'm seeing
reminds me.
from
You
it.
remember the story of the man who was visiting a town in Africa, and the kids were playing with what were marbles, right? Well, the way we think of marbles, that they're everywhere. And the guy said, well, he knew that they were diamonds, only because that had been essentially constructed as something that's valuable. So, but in Africa, they were like, they're marbles. You can pick them up everywhere. And then it became this mind thing. And the more I learn and realize, it's kind of like one of these processes. When you first become a white belt, you know nothing, and you have to go in there with a clean slate. So it's almost easier to be a white belt than be a black belt learning at a white level, because now I know that that we had such a tiny little lens. So let's just look at the 5 senses, because one of the key things he talks about on episode 6 is the 5 barriers. And he talks about the first one, right? The barriers to self-realization, and self being with the capital S, not the egotistical, the sorcerers of what they want to have happen. Screw everybody else, doesn't matter. Screw the environment, doesn't matter. It's all for what I want, type of thing. Well, the piece that he was talking about with regards to that, the very first one of the 5 sensory illusion, because we watched What the Bleep Do We Know? We watched Down the Rabbit Hole with the quantum, where all the marbles go through the field, and then the quantum, it's changed by the observer. So we had that, but I didn't have it from this perspective of, whoa, this whole illusion of why we cannot know ourselves and realize the truth is because we've literally, going back to the original, what I was talking about, been so dumbed down that we don't even know that we are energetic beings. We don't even know, because we only think that we see with our eyes. Ryder, you and I have this in common. It is that we've worn glasses, and our eyesight is not 20/20. But since I have understood this and taken this into the 5 sense illusion and really pulled this apart, the whole concept that we think, if we can't see it with our eyeballs, if we can't hear it with our ears, the nodule that's, if we can't hear it there, if we can't taste it, if we can't feel it with our hands, then it's not real. And I feel like I have protested that a lot in my life. Remember when I was trying to bend the spoon?
Mm-hmm.
I heard somebody could bend a spoon. And for a year, I spent trying to do it just on my own, like secret, because there was something in me that knew there was something more. And all of these particles that are around us. And then there was something happened, and I literally felt like I became everything. I was cleaning the garage. I was cleaning a total hellhole of a garage, and we were getting ready to move. And something just shifted in me, and it's almost like I became everything. And it was like, it's this explosive energy of becoming chaos and then coming back down into pureness of love. And I literally I picked up the spoon, and it was like taffy in my hands. And it was like I was in communication and one with this spoon. And in that, I can feel that moment right now. I have the God bumps from it. And I'm looking at it, and in that same moment as I'm doing it, I'm saying, someone needs to video this, because my boys won't believe this. No one's going to believe. And I'm doing this, and it's only a few times that I'm twisting it. And it was like taffy. It was the most incredible experience. So that I walk in, I'm like, look what just, right? That shifted everything for me. And then I realized, as over the years have passed now, because I do not have quote unquote 20/20 vision, but what I see now, and just re-listening to this episode where he talks about the 5 sense illusion, is that like the cats, like Gigi can see the spectrum of infrared and what is it? What's the purple one? What's the purple one?
UV.
UV?
UV
Is that, what's the other one? The
I don't know.
violet. Okay, right. The
Ultraviolet. Yeah,
the
yeah.
ultraviolet
Which is
and the
UV, I think.
okay, so
Is that what UV
these
stands for?
spectrums, and then I realized, holy crap! Every time I put my glasses on to see this 20/20 spectrum through those lights, I'm actually cutting off my ability to naturally see more spectrums, more lights, more what I perceive. Because as I look and feel around without my glasses, there's so much more. But then I remember the moments where I would need to put on my glasses because it's almost too much. It's almost too much because I can't process it at the consciousness that I was before. And that's why I think it is so important for us every single day to take steps towards increasing and improving our consciousness, but not just getting more data. So the caveat is I binged Mark's first 30 podcast episodes, binged them. I couldn't get enough. And I did a tailspin into hell because it was so painful to have all this data but not know how to understand it and to process it. So it's why I insist on, and Ryder, I'd hope you continue to listen to these, and we'll come back to these. To me, there's so many quotes. I mean, look at this. It's like we can't not, we can't just ignore. We have to know what the occulted, what the sorcerers are doing. So let's just go back into the conversation on sorcerers and magics, because that was last week in episode 5, and he brings it back up in this one, and he makes it so succinct. So do you recall on the difference between magic and sorcerer?
Yes, when he dived in a little bit more, and like the I guess like the good and the bad, well, arbitrarily, but I do recall it. I do remember
he defines it with the exact same definition except for one key thing. And I think that that's also really cool. It's these subtle pieces that we forget, because all he changed was the W. He capitalized it so that could actually signify or designate the higher sense, the higher self, the higher will, which ultimately, and the moment you tap into that, you can feel that true power versus the sorcerer's power, which is egoic and is very small, but they're so terrified that they have to go and control everybody else. And this is the bullies. We've heard this, there's the micro and the macrocosm of it. Those that are afraid, they're going to bully and they're going to try and control everybody else. But so going back to this, the magi, the magic, the alchemist, that's the difference. So the alchemist is wanting to influence, including themselves, in harmony with the higher will. And I mean the higher will, not this what we see with these egoic Saturn, whatever, that low level inverted. If I say evil, that might be too strong a word, because I don't want us to disconnect from it. But the bottom line is it's evil because it's harming. It's deliberately, intentionally harming day in, day out. And they are working 24/7 on that mission. And that's why I'm here, standing here with a sense of a bit of embarrassment, but also a sense of it's not duty. It's like an emergency. Like it's vital that we have these conversations. And that I have to start with myself, and then I'm going to start with my sons, because that's what I can control. No, it's what I can influence. And I want to influence you, my son, to a higher connection to the will, right? Even though I know you have other interests and are excited about so many things that you're doing in your life, but I want you to have this depth of of understanding without it taking anything away from you, not your egoic thing, but your sense of your connection in harmony with the higher will. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking, and I would love to have Sarah's. So Sarah Cuss, I invited some folks from the Mark Passio group, and I said if anybody wanted to come and have this discussion. So I don't know how much you actually listened to the episode, Ryder. Did you listen to the full episode 6?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I love that you got Tesla out of it. That's awesome.
Okay. Yes. I mean, speaking about explaining the significance of the golden rule and how that is a close parallel to true truth, which is allowing free will of others and allowing free will of yourself does not mean trying to control or trying to harm just because that's what your free will allows you to do. Just because you have the free will or ability to hurt others does not mean that is right. And I'm talking about how you have the right to do what is fundamentally right is also very important. I mean, that is how I like to live my life. And because it's a very, I will say easy. It's a very easy thing to understand if you're actually trying to understand how to be a quote unquote good person or a righteous person. Because it's an easy thing to think about every time you make a decision. Like, is this decision going to aid me? Is it going to harm another? The answer to the first question is yes. If it's going to help you and it's not harming anyone else, then it is a decision that might be in line with maybe not the highest good, but is in line with something that can help you at least get closer to that. And a lot of people will do things that help themselves but harm others, even if they don't know that it does. And
do you have an example of that you've seen or observed?
I think I do. I'll have to think about that, but I do have a few examples actually. I'm going to think of the best way to explain them so it's clear. I think one thing that I'll say as an interesting thing, which is similar to what he talked about, how having understanding or knowledge of something and not taking action is the same as basically not doing anything at all. I mean, not doing anything at all is the same thing as kind of harming, because you have the ability to change, but you're not doing anything with that ability. When you talked about how the stones, right, it was like diamonds and crystals and rubies or whatever have just been made to have value, even though they really don't. I thought about how
I think they do have value, but it's a different kind of value.
It's a different kind of value. Yeah. It's not like
someone else's
gold, copper, these materials, tin, these things that you could use have intrinsic value because you can make things with them to better a lot more people. Same thing with how when you would trade sheepskin, milk, you can make lots of different things with milk. You can make lots of different things with flour. These have intrinsic value that is actually tangible, and you can actually use them. You can actually see them, feel them, and you know exactly what they're used for. But crystals have their own value, but they have been blown out of proportion to just have like this tiny little diamond is worth, I guess not tiny, like where's mine?
I get what you're saying with regards because of the control.
Because I've seen lots of people now recently with social media, how they'll say in the comments of a video these things. Because like sometimes I'll just get videos of like someone like shaping a diamond or making a ring, and I like that because it looks cool. I like to see them create something. But I'll see people say all of this for something that's not actually worth anything, or I bet you could actually go out. And then diamond companies will say these are worth millions. All these people now understand, or I guess not really understand, they just think they know, these aren't actually worth anything. I've seen lots of people say, yeah, diamonds, it's obvious that it's just the big companies trying to make them have value, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not taking action. They're not spraying anything. They're just saying something arbitrarily, even though they've already realized that they don't actually have they don't have the value that is being placed on them. They don't have the same monetary money value that companies are trying to sell them to you. I've seen people who say that, like they say,
so do you think this is sorcery? Do you think
absolutely? Yes, because they know this thing. They know that, okay, this has been artificially monetized, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not changing it. They're not. And if somebody came to them with a petition that said, let's end this, let's stop this, because this is a really massive market that's a lot of money is being sunk into. Let's end this. They would not sign that
Plus
petition.
all the slaves that they use to go and mine it.
Right.
And
There's so much negatives, the destruction
of the earth. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So if we look at this from the perspective of, so we know that there are sorcerers.
Yes.
We know that there are those that are knowledgeable of manipulation and control of another. And they've just decided, oh, we're going to use gems, or we're going to use food now. We're going to use water. We're going to use energy. We're going to use the media. We're going to, how else can we control this? Interesting. So what do you see in your life, in your day-to-day, especially being influenced? And I'm going to bring this up, the Olympics, because I know that's been your goal, a vision, a really important one. And I am starting to see how all of these interwoven illusions and sorcery work is going on. And I'm wondering, how do you see it, or it's like, nah, I don't care about that? Or
at NACs or at tournaments, when I coach or when I fence, there are two ways of getting water. There's either a water fountain placed very far away that you have to walk to get, or you can spend $7 for a small plastic water bottle. That plastic bottle is not worth the extra $7, because water is and should be free entirely, because it is a natural resource that there is an abundance of, that humans need to survive, which should be free. But because the convention center has a monopoly over it, and because they now, they won't let you bring more than one water bottle into the tournament, that's sorcery right there. That's manipulation and control, because they're basically making you buy it if you want to actually have a bottle of water to take with you. Because obviously, if you're fencing, you can't go to a strip. If you're doing a sport, you can't go to if you're actively doing something, you cannot go to the water fountain and then come back. You have to have a bottle with you. And the $7 is not worth that plastic amount. That's probably worth pennies, which is certainly worth pennies as soon as the water's gone. It's worth, I'd say it's worse than nothing, because the plastic bottle is just going to end up either in a landfill, because most people aren't going to throw it in the proper recycling. It's just going to be burnt and then turn into chemicals, or anything else that's going to happen with it at the end, right? It's just going to go in landfill, going to go in the ocean, river, whatever.
This is so interesting to hear your perspective, because you're right. You're 100% right. And I didn't look at it from that perspective at all. But it's happening every single day on the day-to-day scale, on the day-to-day level of what we have access to and what we think we have to follow. And it's like our consciousness and our ability to actually understand is being etched away. So what do you know from what can you do from this? Like, what actions can you take in your own life? And what do you think about when you?
It's very hard, because my purpose is not, if I'm going to a place where I'm going to see that, my purpose is not to try and fight that. And it's similar, because I'm not actually doing anything to remedy it, but I'm going there with my own purpose. So the question is, do I let myself fall victim to getting distracted and trying to save that idea, or to trying to help there? Or do I stay on target and not do anything for that? Because
that's the question that I have,
yes,
that I struggle with every day. So what do you do? What have you come to terms with on it? Have you, or do you still struggle?
I'm spending an obscene amount of money to go to these competitions. And if I'm doing anything else besides trying to perform my best, then it is a disservice to myself, and it's a disservice to my family, who's helping me get there. It's a disservice to my coaches who have helped me train for it. It is the biggest disservice to myself, and the biggest betrayal of the hard work that I put in if I'm not there 100% focused. And I think it's the same thing with anything else. If you are doing something with a purpose, you should not be distracted. Even if like if you're going to a grocery store to buy food, you should know exactly what you're going to get. You shouldn't get distracted. You shouldn't try to, it's hard because there are exceptions, of course. If you see somebody getting robbed, or if you see something, wrong, and you see somebody actively getting, if you see someone getting threatened or whatever, you have a responsibility to kind of help them, because you can. If you can help them, you should, because another person's free will and life is in line, or like their sovereignty is in jeopardy. Then yes, you can step in for that, but if you have to weigh it, because otherwise, then what's the point of trying to focus on one thing? At that point, just do whatever you can at any given moment. Just don't even make a plan. Just do whatever in the moment.
Just react to everything.
Exactly. Just react to exactly. Yeah. React to everything.
Which is the chaos merchants' agenda.
Yes, that's
but
how
then
people,
they want you to react in their way, so that because they're going to provide the solution.
Yeah.
And the solution is the evil.
And the issue is people who are reacting all the time is how the majority of people who are trying to make changes in the world are seen as, because they are so radicalized by the information that they have gathered that they want to fix every problem at once. And because they can't.
I love what you're saying. Tell me straight up. Do you see that in me? Do you see that? Do you feel like I'm?
I have before. Now, there is less, but there absolutely was a point before where you were like that, where every single sentence had one thing or another talking about this or that, about how this needs to be fixed, or this is like just kind of all over the place. There was no focus. There was no you knew that there were problems, but you did not know how to solve the problems or what problems actually were. You just knew that something was wrong. And that put you in a state of panic, because you didn't have the self-control or self-discipline to just accept the fact that you're not able to do much, and then control what you can do.
Which I still can't,
Right.
and won't accept. I still protest
you want to help everything. You think that you can help the world.
I want to fix it like that.
You can't help the world. What you can do is help other people. And when the mass all wants to help and agrees with that vision, that's what fixes the world, not one person. Gandhi did not do the great things he did by himself. He did it because he was able to share that vision with people. And the people all wanted to follow him. And that is what made those things happen. Not just him by himself. He did actions that he could control. And that is what made others inspired and what made others follow him. Because he did everything that he could control, like making the clothes himself, not eating in prison, right? Not eating on these certain times. Like he knew that he could do that, and that's what inspired other people to follow. He didn't make anybody do anything. He would have done exactly what he did if only one person was following him, if no one was there. But because he was willing to do that, and he had such self-control, everyone was like, not everyone, but a lot of people were willing to follow him. And there were still people fighting against him, but because he was doing absolutely no harm, they couldn't actually stop him, because he was not taking over anyone's free will. He was not trampling anyone's rights to living. He was helping others and doing everything just peacefully. And that's why, right, he was put in prison. He didn't eat. He just lay down. He just meditated. They let him go, because if he had died in prison, the people who were following him would have united and done their own, they would have done their own massive reaction to that. And because Gandhi was fully happy with how his life and living in the moment, he didn't mind if his physical body had passed away there. So he wasn't arguing, he wasn't fighting, he wasn't doing anything to actually justify him being put in prison or him being persecuted from the law or whatever, because there wasn't actually anything illegal about what he was doing. There was, of course, there's the argument that like, okay, well, illegal also doesn't matter. That's just rules written by people who want to control anyway. But he was not actually breaking any natural laws or natural rules based around other people. Yeah. He was only ever trying to do things for the best that he could do and do for other people, basically. That's how I see that. And he is a great example of how the world can change and how people can change. But then you look at, you know, I don't know if Hitler's a good example for this, but he's radical. Like how Mark brought up how Hitler, in his own delusion, was doing what was right to him, what was correct to him, what was moral to him, because he thought he had a justified path. Because, okay, to him, the Jewish people were evil, they were manipulators, whatever.
I think, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
like,
we could go
but
down that path.
actually, now I can explain it, because now I just realized the best way to explain it. He was radicalized because of of the knowledge that he got. And he thought, oh, I need to do something now. I need to control it. I need to kill others. I need to control others, eliminate it. But that was the wrong way to do it. If he really cared about the German people, he would not have done it in a way where peaceful German citizens who were maybe not pure-blooded or whatever, but were still actively, like, there were a lot of bakers, clockmakers, engineers, service workers who maybe weren't pure German, but were German people who lived in Germany, who cared for the German countryside, and he killed them. He jailed them because he was, I guess I'll use the word again, he was radicalized by his beliefs. And instead of trying to find a peaceful way to help everybody, to help people get to his side, he spread fear and anger, and that's how he got people to his side. And then he used that control to trample the rights of others instead of let them grow and flourish.
Yeah. That's a whole thing that could be unpacked, because
absolutely,
let's face it, we don't know the truth. We don't know,
of course.
What
but looking at
because
looking at the
we've literally
speeches
been
illusions
yes.
of. I remember the Europe. Yeah.
But we don't know that that's true. That's someone's opinion,
right.
And here's the thing.
It's just the example. He was radicalized to war and to fighting and to pushing everyone out and trying to, like, bubble the German people and only have the German people so they could be a utopia, so they could be safe. That is fundamentally what he was trying to do, is make Germany their own thing entirely. Maybe there was part that he wanted peace with the other countries, whatever. But think about how instead of,
well, it did come down to money. It did come down to
nourishing. But like he got, I guess, scared and like caged himself and forced to be like, he was making everything smaller, because that's, if you just want to live your own little life, that's scared, that's hiding away, that's fear. Like Mark says, right? It's fear. It's
right. So bottom line is, all of that contraction and chaos came about because of lies.
Yes.
And I think there's still a lot of lies connected to all of that. And let's face it, there's lies across the board around energy, around who we really are, what our senses really are. So as a result of those lies, and that they're perpetuated, they have now become beliefs, and they've become a way of thinking. That is, now we've got this whole tsunami of people operating in that way. And then how do we shift so that we can actually come into a place, and I think a place of consciousness where we can make a change? Let's say a Gandhi, or let's say,
it's very hard. It's very hard now, because the difference now is there's so much confusion and so much loss. And I mean, it is sad to say, but it is really far gone, because
yes, but here's the thing, and this is what I had to hold on to, because a year ago when I first started this, I could not deal with this. I was hopeless. I thought, okay, everything I knew, all my training, all of my spiritual counseling, all of my certificates that I have, I am not able to even make a small impact. And it was devastating for me to actually know that, and to realize, because all I've ever wanted to do is actually make a positive impact. And the thing is, if you feel like you can't make a positive impact, at least in my world,
I agree. If you feel like you can't do something, that's the control. That's the source.
But the thing that I learned from doing this work now is that, and I used to say this all the time to you guys, 3 fingers pointing back, but I didn't take it on for myself.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing that, and I feel like I'm having to make up a lot of damage that I've done as a result of being unconscious or operating from a place that I thought I was conscious because I knew so much more, and I had this PhD in this, and I had this and this and this, and which means nothing if it's still the same illusion. I mean, it's still the same perpetuated lies that become beliefs, that become our reality, which is, it has been crumbling around me it's been crumbling around for the last, for sure, 5 years. Prior to that, I see all the ties, but for sure the last 5 years. And Sarah, one of the things that you started talking about earlier, prior to us going live, is that you were in Ireland when COVID came out, and you saw the signs. So in listening to our conversation that we've had, what's your take on all this, especially knowing here I am sitting with my 19-year-old. I have a 16-year-old who's all in on Mark, and he's like, Mark is my, hero type of thing. And he's like, because he wants, he's got that energy, but at the same time, there is those of us that I'm still right brain. I'm balancing my right and left brain instead of being so imbalanced of my extremes. And I'm really working hard to do that. But there is a part of me that is in deep grief for our society, for our culture, for our sons and daughters, for ourselves, because of the amount of lies and evil that is perpetuated every day. And I just wanted to stop. I just saw something yesterday where I don't even know if this is true, but I saw some whistleblower who said that Hillary Clinton, they witnessed firsthand that she scalpel took the face off of a child and put it on her face. Now, I think this could be absolutely extreme, but this is supposedly an FBI informer that's like sick. Well, why in the hell was that not handled right then and there? If that's the case, why are you freaking putting it on social media? That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, is that we have so much social media out there reporting crimes. What in the F? Why report the effing crimes? Do something about it. That's where I'm at now, right? But it's just like, holy smoke. I remember being in total frozen fear for 2 years for the COVID pandemic bullshit that was going on. And there's still people that are like, oh no, you don't understand. My friend died of COVID and it's horrible. And it's like, oh my gosh, wake up. There's that. You see this, what I am going through. This is the stuff that I'm going through. And I'm doing it in a transparent way in front of my sons, because they're inheriting a future in their next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, our whole generations. If they don't wake up, dear Lord, this artificial intelligence, which is totally nothing but a swarm of controlled mind manipulation in one pot, is going to take over. Okay, I'm muting myself now so that I can hear Sarah and Ryder continue the dialogue.
Yeah. So you guys brought up a lot of great points, and hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, okay. So you brought up a lot of good points, and one of the things that I would say to a lot of that is what I've come to figure out generally just through my own process of, growth and learning this stuff is ultimately, and I mean, people would have to go back and look at like my work and my husband's work to really see a full picture. But ultimately, I think it really comes down to you get what you ask for. So if you when we operate in a way that is not in accordance properly, then we're going to get what we ask for. And oh, give me a second.
Yeah, I really need you to unpack that, because that is that's kind of like the law of attraction. You get what you
Mhm.
ask for.
Yes,
I
you get
mean,
what you put out
that's
in the
got to
world.
be unpacked more, because I
It's
ask
like
daily,
that's
you
what's
know?
really interesting is how like originally like before the idea of karma, like when it was first understood from people, like in the same time of Buddhism, and like the idea of karma, of reincarnation, these are actual ideas, like the actual principles that we've seen to be true in some extent, and yet
Oh,
it's kind
sorry
of been
about that.
mutilated. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
you get
sorry
what
about.
you ask for. You have to
Yes,
unpack that for
so
us.
I had to just move a little bit here.
So are you
Um,
saying karma? Are you saying, like, those
no,
words, you get what you ask for? So that's,
so
I'm literal in a way. And so what does that mean?
okay, so for people to just kind of understand a little bit of my background, I am coming from a point of more of the probably more of the clinical stance where I do consider myself spiritual. I'm looking at things. I understand spirituality is like operating the same physically as well. It's like very clinical with me. I see an operation, I see a process that is correct. So it's like I would equate it to, like, if you were talking about tarot, in regards to tarot, I would consider like information like the stream of consciousness, and there's a cycle here that's taking place. So for how I understand it, like what I mean, I would say I know because I've had certain experiences that teach me this is the case. But for everybody else, it's up for consideration file in your head, because really people have to learn from experience, which is part of, what Passio was saying in number 6. There's a difference between nescience and gnosis. And gnosis is when you are learning, you're figuring things out due to personal experiences, which is a lot of what I've gotten. And and I kind of think of these things in a more clinical stance, and not in this like um more of this like frilly way. Like, I don't know how to really put that, but it's very,
So when you
it
say
feels
clinical, saying with regards to any specific structured form,
yeah,
they
like there
follow
is a
certain
there's a
boundaries.
there's a correct process here, like the 7 hermetic principles, or natural law, or whatever people want to call them. You have mind, correspondence, or mentalism, correspondence, polarity, polar vibration, yada yada, right? These are, I don't look at these as just solely spiritual concepts that are inherently how how reality operates due to source or God, or what set everything into motion, whatever people want to call it, set into place as this is how reality operates. I don't look at this solely as like a spiritual thing. To me, this is a very mechanical operation, as well as it is spiritual, because part of the growth process is us integrating this information and expanding from it and operating with accordance. So, like, for an example, a computer, say you have a computer. If I do not operate that computer correctly, I'm going to have consequences. My computer will break. My computer won't function properly. But if I operate the computer the way it is meant to be operated, then my computer will function optimally. So um, I put these principles, and I do what I my best. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I do my best to operate in accordance with them. But and I add that, like we add this into it because we think it's like vitally important. And I think some people really forget this aspect of it, is understanding how to operate in accordance with these things through your own personal thoughts, emotions, and actions, and in that order. And like getting your house in order, which is doing all the inner work, what needs to be done inwards so you can move, expand that outwards and actually affect your environment. So, like it's the, what, like the principles, I would consider this to be the what part of this. Like this is how the universe operates. This is the standard here. This is the mechanical standard here, the operation. And the thoughts, emotions, and actions is the how do we operate in accordance with that. And then you have, which I would add into it, the care, the aspects of care, self-defense, and nonviolence. And putting that together as like the full thing there to so that I feel like when it's put together like that, it's not as confusing as it may be for other people. I think there's some confusion that takes place because, and I feel like a lot of times things are missing. So when I say you get what you ask for, our reality itself is responsive. So we are all fractions. I would consider us all to be fractions of the same source or God or that which set into motion. Like usually I would refer to this as source or God as the thing that set all things into motion. And that's how I would look at this. And excuse me. Mm. So when I say we get what we ask for, is how we operate through our thoughts, emotions, and actions with understanding or not understanding the mechanics of how reality operates, how it just operates, regardless of how you feel about it or what you want to believe or whatever. This is what dictates what we get. So when we operate negatively, we get negative consequences. And when we operate positively, we get positive consequences. And I mean, and
I wish
it's
that
not,
were true, but
oh,
I haven't seen that.
I,
I've,
I see it all the time. I see it
hmm.
all the time. As soon as I started thinking about it this way and operating in this fashion, I see it every single day. I see it all the time. I really do. And then I see
So
you
let's
can't,
be,
this doesn't include external forces that are doing things against your inherent rights. You can't always control what other people are doing. All you can do is react to that and combat that, but through your thoughts, emotions, and actions, however it is appropriate to handle it. So, but I see this. I've been practicing it this way for a long time. I consider both our physical bodies and our non-physical bodies to be both vitally important to the process of quote growing up and developing into these understandings. So as soon as I started doing this, and of course this is a practice like everything else, learning how to ride a bike, these are skills, they're habits we have to like learn, right? And just like anything else. And it took me a long time to kind of find that, but as soon as I understood how to manifest in this way and operate in this way, things started to change for my life, like how my life actually operated, and it improved. It improved dramatically just for my own personal environment, my own personal life. And when it comes to other people, now I can recognize with other people if they are operating through their with accordance of reality through their thoughts, emotions, and actions. I can see where they're at in that way.
So let's just watch some of these words I'm struggling with.
Okay.
If they're operating in accordance with reality, right?
Being
But
the
reality,
principles.
okay.
Being the,
So then that's really got to be clear, because for me, I'm not saying you need to be. For me, because right now I'm revolting the reality. I'm completely in revulsion of the reality that I'm seeing, and protesting it greatly.
Right.
So
Well, I would just know, I separate what is happening in like the physical world that is being propagated by what I actually call the parasite class. I don't call them
so you do not term that
Satanists.
reality.
Huh?
It's a you do not term that reality.
I term it physical reality because our physical condition is currently under the oppression of a parasite class. And when I say parasite class, I'm talking about what most people might say Satanists or dark occultists or whatever. But for me,
Parasite class is perfect.
yeah,
That
I don't like giving
names
people
it.
who I consider to be
They're
violators of
parasites.
inherent rights. I don't
Right.
want to give them lofty titles or give them more credit than I think they're worth. To me, they're parasites, and parasites need to be gotten rid of
Cleansed.
because they need to be cleansed. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and because I mean, and it's just that's the perspective I have. So, physical conditions in our physical reality, like I would consider that to be like not what I talk about, not what I mean when I say reality, like
Okay.
how reality itself works on the
Like
macrocosm.
what Emerson talks about. Ralph Waldo Emerson talks a lot about this, versus Carlyle, who was another guy who was all about the more negative, versus Emerson was very much on the positive. So, and you saw
I look at the macrocosm versus the microcosm. So like I'm thinking like the principles themselves are like the mechanical operations of all of reality, both physical and non-physical. And that's like, if gravity works when you fall, etc. Right? So
so you get what you ask for. Can you
get what you ask for?
Give an example, a specific, tangible example that I might be able to get my mind around on this.
Okay, so I don't know if I could explain it to like its extent where it does it justice, but I have studied a little bit, not all of the work of, but a little bit, quite a bit of it, of the works of Dr. Joe Dispenza and the works of Ernest Holmes. And I talk about Ernest Holmes all the time. I love Ernest Holmes. I love The Science of Mind. It's probably in my top 5 books of favorites. And I like how they put it. And this is what I got out of it was really basically comes down to you get what you ask for. When you focus on one thing, source or God or whatever people want to call it, that you're connected to directly, will respond in kind to you. So they're like, oh, you want to,
In
it's
what
like
time
if you
frame? Same,
there
because
is
I'm
that
how do you get that? Because Joe Dispenza was somebody I was totally into, right? And I had we read it out loud at home as like a book study.
the time frame is all about the personal, the individual. So here's the thing.
Knowing what you know with Mark Passio's work, do you think though that is almost solipsism, or almost going into specifically what Joe Dispenza is talking about with regards to, I don't know enough about Ernest Holmes, but I know with Joe Dispenza, it's definitely about the ego. What do I want? I want a shopping spree. I wanted this. And you have to stay in alignment until you get this. And then, oh, I got it. Oh my God. Let me
no. That's different. That's a different thing. Like what they're talking about.
What the Joe Dispenza stuff is like.
But that's not harming. It's not in a way that's harming anyone else. That's why one of the things is you cannot think about something that's going to harm someone else. Otherwise, that won't work.
Yeah, like, so
That's
there was an example, like, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in regards to yourself. Like, if and I've had these experiences, so I personally know that they're true, and it's just other people have to experience these things to know that they're true. And until then, it's consideration file. So, he get Joe Dispenza, and I'll give you a personal example as well. But Joe Dispenza gives an example. One of his examples is a woman who went to his seminar, and she's just like, she went as a curiosity. She's like, okay, a friend suggested it. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Self-help, blah, blah, blah. So she goes, right? And he explains this technique. And he's coming from the stance of, I think he was a neurologist, which is interesting because he is a man who studied the brain specifically, which is a very interesting background to have for somebody who moves into teaching people about like manifestation and like operating with a like just with yourself even internally. So and I could not do it justice explaining his work, but he gives an example. This woman goes to a seminar, right? And she's having these issues with finances, and she owes, it was like a specific amount of money, right? So she's like, I've got to pay for this and this, and like I'm just in this debt, and I need like whatever it was, $76,000 or whatever it was. And so she spent the whole day listening to him, and this is just how it worked for her. Listening to him, she wasn't thinking about or focusing about the strife or the grief or the negative feelings that she was having and the desperation and the fear-based response that she had from owing this money, which is really most of anything that comes out of us that is this negative thing. It's usually this fear-based response to some degree, from what I've so far witnessed and studied in. And so she spent the whole day not thinking about how much distress she was in over it. And instead, she was just focusing on what he was saying and doing the exercises with him. And she was saying, I think it was like a few days later or something like that, she like randomly played the lottery, and she won exactly that amount of money that she had owed. And she was like, I'm like stunned that this happened. But most of the examples with Dr. Joe Dispenza have to do with health, which is what I was primarily interested in with Joe Dispenza, and what I'm working on going back into his techniques for my own personal health. And some of the things, like, so most of it is all about internal health and about helping yourself develop, like, physically in a way where you can get your house in order, say,
Yeah, it's
so
aligning
that,
your
so
head, your
you,
heart, and your body. Neville
right,
Goddard
exactly.
talks a
So,
lot about this. Neville Goddard, I think, was the original. A lot of stuff that Joe Dispenza took
yeah.
took from Neville Goddard. And so, yeah, here's the thing that challenges me. If like, so for that woman, now let's repeat that for everyone. Let's ensure that everyone can repeat that. And why is it, let's uncover and do a clinical trial on as to why is it that we are not. And and does it come down to those three pieces, which is their head, their thoughts are not in alignment with their heart, what they care about, what their
Yeah.
frequency is vibrating,
It's
whatever, and
about,
then what they're doing, because they're doing based on all these other.
most of the time people are operating in fear, or they say doubt or desperation or this or that. Really, like, when you dismantle all these other emotions, it's really just a fear-based response. And that's like where the parasite class wants us to be operating at that level. It's how,
Since
when
you
we
have
operate in a fear-based response, we're turning the volume down on our connection to source, on our connection to tapping into that, our heart, our minds, hearts, and bodies. And like, that is what I've come across, I mean, so far. And I know it to be true because I've had personal experiences that prove it. I've done even things myself before I understood Dr. Joe Dispenza and the work of Ernest Holmes. And when I think about those experiences now in my life, I'm like, I don't even know how I did it, because I did it entirely by accident, not even not
Exactly.
even
And that's the thing.
understanding. And but this
I
was
want to
the key.
understand.
This was the key to that. It is about your intention. It is about your will, big W, and your intention and what you put into it. So if you only say half-heartedly, oh, I want to be physically and body healthy, and you're trying to use this technique, um, and operating in accordance with the principles, or ultimately the mechanics of reality, or through your thoughts, emotions, and action, but you're only doing it kind of half-heartedly because you have doubt in you're like, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, blah, blah, da da da, all those doubts. That doubt, which is a fear-based response, you are personally leaving that door open for it to go wrong. So
Or
when
interference. I mean, there's so much interference, and this is right
that's why
when
you
you
got to shut that door. You got to close
right.
that door. Don't
One of the things
allow
that
the
I
doubt to
see,
come in.
so and that's where right now, I have opened this door into the Mark Passio world. And prior to that, I was the law of attraction girl. I had every Abraham Hicks book. I had all the DVDs, CDs. He's shaking his head
Every
because
single
when
car
my
ride.
second, for 16 years, that's what I played in. And I wanted to be, I was all high vibration. Are you in the vortex? Are you in the if it's not inside my vortex, if it's right. And so I was all this, too much to the point where I was ignoring what was really going on. And for any, I tried to keep my studio going during COVID. I went live twice a day, every single day for 2 weeks. Okay, everybody. And I poured out into the world positivity and goodness and seeing good things and well, guess what? In Portland, Oregon, 2 years later, my sons could not go anywhere without, you're required to have a diaper on your face. You're required to get this if you don't have this put in your body. So there wasn't doubt. It was like, okay, I did a lot of my work, a lot of the work internally. But at some point, I did have to wake up to what in the F is really going on here? What on earth is happening? And so now I'm trying to navigate this. And it's 16 years of
It's
heavy duty being
yeah.
I was a certified law of attraction coach. I was a certified Joe Dispenza. I was all about it. Look, I've done all of it. I've manifested this, that, whatever. It doesn't matter when the world is on fire
Yeah. Well, I mean,
at
there's a
some
big
point, so I'm
difference.
like,
Like, what I'm talking about really more specifically is there is a big difference between what is happening physically externally and what is happening metaphysically, inwardly. And these are different sort of, I mean, they operate together, but they also operate separately in that
would you
way. And
say you need
so
to spend time in that metaphysical state, maybe even more so? No.
I actually work, I try to work hand in hand with my physical and my metaphysical self. So I mean,
You don't
it's
deny
kind.
the reality, then you don't deny
No, no,
the
no, no, no. Of course not. I don't
mm,
go into. I don't overcomplicate any of the information. I
okay.
see. I dismantle. I try to see things for what they actually are, and I don't complicate things. I don't
Mhm.
give things fancy titles or what people usually like coin terms and stuff. I'm just not that person. I like things to just be clean and to the point.
Yeah,
But
I need some of that.
I don't, yeah, I don't do things like, oh, the physical world's like a matrix and blah, blah. I don't do those kind of things. It's just, I
Okay.
don't assess it that way. I'm like, no, we've got, like, and really like, how we operate, how our immediate external environment operates. Like this does have like effects in our physical reality. And I've seen that happen. Like, you know, the leading by example concept. And I've seen it where like during the lockdowns, for example, I didn't wear masks. I didn't wear visors. I absolutely did not comply to any of it. I didn't get any shots. I didn't do any of that stuff. And it was accepted that I wasn't going to do that. And I mean, I was questioned, and I had a couple of, you know, people who were trying to uh, play their hand with me, but it didn't work on me in that way. And mostly because I have a background where I essentially grew up in and out of hospitals as a chronic kid. And I understood already how the medical world worked. I understood what hypoxia was. I understood how exchange of bacteria and viruses and whatnot. I understood how people actually get sick in the first place. Like I understood the language. So when they started doing that stuff, and I'm like, none of that is medically accurate at
Yeah.
all. So I knew that immediately. Like, I mean, I even went to my doctor, my specialist, and I said, I need an exemption letter because you know, and I know I'm not going to comply to any of that. And he wrote it for me and I got it. And I was in Ireland at the time when it happened. And the things that, I mean, if people think it was bad in America, it's worse in a socialist country. And Ireland is even not fully, it's like half socialist and half whatever they think it is, but like it's not even a full on socialist country or whatever. And so that was the difference that we saw there. I mean, I won't go into it, but there are when I talk about we get what we ask for, it's like when in the physical realm, okay, if you're talking just physically, when we comply or when we don't say no to the parasite class, and even this is a thing in court, like this is under court jurisdiction, where like if you don't say no in a courtroom to them, they will automatically assume you're saying yes or that you don't care whatever it is they're doing. So that's a thing that's like actually in like if you're going to court for something. So that is how the parasite class really kind of gets their hands in everything, because there's not enough people saying no. When you don't say no, they will automatically take that as yes, or that you don't care about what they're doing. So it, that's why it's important to say no to anything that comes up that you understand is an
With
inherent
intention,
violation.
right?
Well, I would say
With
with
intention.
intention.
So
All of this
we're
should be with intention, but
yeah.
even physically saying no. Now, in the metaphysical side of things, your internal side, inward, um, it like what the idea of you get what you ask for. Like so, a personal uh, experience, right? A long time ago, in 2008, I was in a state where I had 15% lung capacity, and I was given by the institution, the medical institution, approximately about 2 years to live. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old daughter, and I was in this headspace. Of course, I wasn't anything like what I am now. I didn't understand anything about Dr. Joe Dispenza, Ernest Holmes, or any of these other people. I didn't know anything about Mark Passio. None of these things were in my life at that time. I was operating mainly out of a very more so a materialistic, fear-based response, and it was usually due to poor health issues. So I kind of went inward of this, and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's real now. It's real serious, and I had to make a decision. And what was happening is the entire left part of my lung, my left lung, was completely rotted out. And if you were to ask the medical institution, that's it. Like they cut it out, they give you a new lung, whatever. There's no repairing that, right? That is the standard. There's no repairing a rotten organ, apparently. So that's what I understood at the time. So I was like, okay, I don't know what to do here. So what I had to do was I actually had to I left my daughter with her dad for a while, for a few years, and I went and I found a specialist who was willing to try and maybe help me, because where I was at the time, they weren't willing to try and help me. So I was like, okay, my latch ditch effort, I'm going in through the materialistic mindset here. I found a doctor who was willing to help me, and I'm like, what do we do? Do we do transplant? Yada yada. She's like, we could do that, but I want to try a few other things. And this was a doctor with UCLA, surprisingly. And so she put me on a regimen of like physical exercise and some more like vitamins and like a few antibiotics that could help bring my lung capacity back. And during that time frame, and this is that's all the physical parts of it, aspects of it, this journey, the metaphysical side of this, which I and my husband were doing sort of accidentally, because we were starting to come into some more concepts, I think, towards that time in small, tiny increments. The metaphysical side of it was that my focus the entire time that I was trying to reverse or do something about this particular position I was in, my only focus every day was, I need to heal my lungs so that I can be a mother to my daughter and be there with my daughter. But my focus is like, my lungs have to heal because I have to be with my daughter. And it wasn't a doubt in my mind. Like, I thought about it every single day. It was constantly on my mind there. And I didn't look at it, oh, I really want to, oh, I'm hoping, I'm praying, and I'm afraid it won't happen. I didn't have that in my head.
It was just
There
pure
was none of
conviction.
that. It
This is
was
what's
all,
happening.
I'm going to heal my lungs so I can be a proper mother to my daughter. That was it. That's what was going to happen. It was firm. That was the result, period. And so I didn't have any doubt or fear in my mind or my heart or in my intention that I was putting out, not realizing what I was doing. It was just, I was so like firm in my head and my heart that that's what was going to happen. So after a few years of all of this work, my lung capacity went from 15% to something like 86%. And the rot in the left portion of my lung completely went away. And the doctor from UCLA was like, cool, let's move on. I guess you don't need a lung transplant. Didn't even want to talk about it. So she was just, which is funny because soon after that, she actually retired. And I've had a couple of doctors retire on me after weird experiences. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, and I did it sort of accidentally. And my husband, because he would put, oh, you're going to heal. You're going to heal. Of course, it's not even a question, and he did that a lot too with me. And because it just wasn't an option. It was not an option that I was going to die from this and not be with my daughter. So that's what I'm talking about, really. Like, you get what you ask for. I asked,
Yeah.
or I said, I asked, I'm like, this is what needs to happen. This is what I require to have happen. And it happened.
So
And that took something like 7 years. That was like 6-7 years.
So does it have to take that time? Do you apply it every single day in every little thing?
Yes, I do now. It's all practice. Like I was saying before, there's practice, like learning how to ride a bike. Now, I'm not going to say there's time frames because there really isn't time frames. It's
I wonder
all
if
about
it's
the
the
individual
stakes, how
person.
high the stakes are. Because like, Ryder, when your dad had cardiac arrest, was in the hospital, was defibbed, was dying, what we were in the car literally on the way when he was being taken in the ambulance. And what did I turn around and say to the two of you? The only thing that's real to us is daddy healthy, happy, and at home. And the 4.5 days that he was in ICU, he's known as the miracle man. So I get that, but the stakes were so freaking high. I mean, I remember in this moment, I can tell you the detail of everything around me as if it's right now.
Yeah.
Seeing my boys' faces every moment, because I was so fully freaking present. And I wonder, I mean, that was, so it's like, there's the miracle, but here's the thing. So are we being so distracted by the sorcerers that we cannot stay focused? And I see this with you, Ryder, because you are so singly minded, focused with who you are, what you're here to do. You know, it's not that you don't have your interests and great relationships and an amazing life. You know, you have your piano, you have your, so it's not like you're siloed completely, but you are so focused, and the distractions, there aren't really too many. They kind of go off. Is that correct? Or I've seen a couple of distractions. For me, I do feel like I have so much baggage that I have been carrying around and holding on to for so long that's almost like, that's easy. Oh, well, let me go look at this baggage over this suitcase over here. Oh, let me go in this closet and see all these old things, instead of just like cut it all off and go forward and be so completely in alignment. And that's the practice. And there is fear in cutting it all off. And that's got to be the sorcerer work.
Yeah.
Where tribal thing, you can't cut, don't cut yourself off from all the basic stuff, or,
Well, I would say for everything that we operate, like whenever we operate in physical reality, the stakes are always going to be high, because in the physical reality, we live in a dangerous universe. Nothing is guaranteed. There's no such thing as like real security, because at any moment,
are you saying that rhetorically? Or are you saying that literally?
No, I mean, like at any moment, like we could have a cataclysm event, like a big gigantic rock hits the planet. We got to operate like, a life is about experience and like learning how to handle that. And like, instead of operating in like that fear based, and with like, in regards to baggage, of course, I think everybody has that. I think it's important to not just let go of the past and not dwell in the past, but you got to dismantle the things that created the baggage, see it for what it is, and then be like, you know what? I'm okay with putting that aside, and it's dealing with it and then moving on, so that you're not hung up by it later subconsciously, or, however it works. So, like I go through life. And when, like, say people are like, well, what's the point of like life and death? And so I'm like, it's about experience and what we do with it and how we handle it and how we grow from it. Now, you have to understand, like, from my perspective, for me, again, consideration file for everybody else, but I know reincarnation is real. It's not something that's confusing to me. Like, I don't doubt that. And so, I add that factor into my assessment of all of these things. So,
Meaning that you don't have to get it done right now, because you're looking at a longer picture.
I look at the bigger picture, because these physical bodies, they're temporary. They get old, broke.
Are you still? I mean, you must have been to say, okay, well, I'm just throwing this body away. My daughter can figure it out on her own with her dad or something. No, you were like,
Yeah, well, I'm not saying don't.
Right.
I'm not saying you like just drop this body and like give up and, it doesn't matter. Like, these physical we're all fractions of the same source, and like we're a piece of that bigger mind, right? So
and do you believe that we have purposes?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
and that
Oh,
so is it predestined, or do we
no,
know it, or so then we're just tapping into it, or
we're tapping into it. Exactly. Like for me, like I would say, my husband would say, nothing is meant to be, everything is made to be. So that means what we're
that's
doing
great.
in the physical is actually creating everything that else is going on. And like, so when it comes down to the parasite class and the oppression that we're under in regards to that, that's because enough of us don't say no.
Right.
And really, that's why we have so much of that, because nobody
And that's the
cut
key
the
right
head
there.
off. And
Yep.
so in the physical, that's really the key, is like when you're passive about it, or you keep your head down. Like I'm not somebody who supports this idea of, well, if I don't participate, then it can't affect me. Of course it's going to affect you, whether you participate or not.
Yeah.
So you have to participate in order to push back, because
Yeah.
otherwise, when you don't say no to them, you're saying yes, or I don't care. And
And
when you
that's the
don't,
sorcerer mechanism of the parasite class that is
right,
built in. And that's a
right.
really important key to know
Yeah.
right off. You mentioned courts, etc. So there's a lot here, and there's a lot on this path and on this journey. We're like on one little pieces of breadcrumbs. Sarah, how can people reach out to you and find you? Are you still doing your radio show on Revolution?
Yep. I'm on
Okay.
Revolution Radio. That's revolution.radio.com. I'm on Studio A and now Studio B. People can go and check out Wednesdays from 1 to 3 p.m. and Fridays from, I believe it's, I'm thinking Pacific to East, but it's 8 to 9 Eastern,
Okay.
and it's under the title Crosstalk. I'm on Facebook under Sarah Cross. I'm on Substack,
Awesome.
and a few small things, because I don't use a ton of social media outside of Facebook and Twitter.
But I know you also have a body of work on One Great Work Network.
Yes, yes.
Dot com,
Thank you.
and then from there you can just go off and find
If you
anything from your
Yes,
work, which is
if
an
you go
amazing body of
to
work.
if you go to the One Great Work Network website and all the creators, there's tons of creators there who are phenomenal. I'm on there as well. So the easiest place to find me is probably going to be there, because I put everything there.
Yep.
Mostly what I do is I just do the radio show, and I write books, and mostly focus on history, because I feel like if we understand history, the way, like real history, then we can understand how the parasite class has been operating on this planet, and we can understand how people have been able to push back in the physical sense, and understand how that works. So
And that's
that's
worth
mostly what I
knowing.
do.
So we're going to
Yeah.
wrap up here. The one thing that my number one take right now is nothing meant to be, it's made to be. That is an amazing
Nothing.
quote.
And you can find his work at pastorcliftonministry.com.
Okay.
That's his website. And that's Pastor Clifton, 1FCLIFTON ministry.com. You can find all of his work there, as well. And yeah, nothing is meant to be. Everything is made to be. And
That is brilliant.
we're the ones making it. So we got to make it.
Exactly.
What we make, what we do matters. What we do in this reality matters.
I 100% agree. And that's why, Ryder, I'm here to support you and to pour into you love and care and alignment, and also have your back, hopefully. I mean, I don't feel like I had somebody who had my back, and I want to have, that in my life's work. I'm the one that has the leaders, the one who's out there in the trenches making a positive impact. The celebrities, when I say celebrities, I mean the musicians and the artists and the politicians that want to make a positive impact. But talk about the parasite class. Wow, they really glom on to those folks. The athletes, the folks that have this life force that's pouring through them, and they're tapped into it. boy, the parasite class likes to suck that as much as possible. So Ryder, what's your number one takeaway? And then we will close out the show.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's.
What's the one thing you want to
I'm gonna
say?
approach today. I don't really have anything to say. I think a lot of great things have been said already. I was enjoying listening. I will do my best to take it today to make every single decision be conscious and every single thought to be conscious, more so than normal.
And you get what you ask for. I've seen that in your life, left and right. I mean, it's beautiful to see it and to witness it. And I know it's true. I'm a little disconnected from it at this point because I'm so focused on studying the negativity, which I probably need to not do so much, right? I mean, there's certain things and coming back to that. So we've been here for 90 minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, audience. Always put your messages in the chat. I will listen to them and share them with my fellow discussion folks here. Thank you, Sarah, for being here. I so appreciate you. And as always, Ryder, my heart, thank you.
Absolutely.
Make it an amazing day. Make it an amazing day. And say no when you need to say no.
That's right. Thank you for having me.